The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
All right. I love it, love it, love it. That's how we should feel today. I know there's so much going on. I'm so glad you're here for the power chat.
I'm glad to be here. We are missing Fanal, of course. She's
Yes.
not here today, but we're going to try and hold up and talk about a courageous lady all of those Saturdays in the Dollar General parking lot in the Eastern Shore. She's
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
she is definitely sticking her neck out for democracy. And I'm
Oh,
really happy about the two ladies joining us today, showing us how it's
yes.
done.
I
So
love it. Well,
yeah.
Fennell Norton is at the 60th anniversary of Now. So talking about a room full of badass women, I'm sure that I don't know if it's more or less dangerous than the Walmart parking lot. I was over there yesterday. I was a little like, hey, all right. Nancy Pelosi speaking this morning. I saw Hala Alala there.
Oh, good.
Hala's there. She's part of the Now Pack. So it was pretty powerful. And we're doing a program tomorrow with the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Candy King, and Adele Scott. Robin Warner will be there. Stuart Calhoun. We're going to take the stage, storm the hill, the Westin, and we're going to do our lunch live. So that'll be fun. That'll be tomorrow in Alexandria. How about that?
That'll be great. That'll be great. Well, Cova Coalition down here just wrapped up a CD2 candidate forum,
Ooh.
which was held on Wednesday night, which we're all feeling a little brave. There was a little pushback on our forum
Oh.
because our
Mm.
front runner couldn't make it. I say
Okay.
front runner because she has raised the most money and she's doing very well in the polls. Elaine Lurie, I know you all are familiar with her.
Right.
We've had her on the Power Lunch before, but there are other candidates running in the primary on August 4th. And we felt like we were going to go ahead and move ahead with the forum, even though
Yeah.
Elaine couldn't participate. She had another
Yeah.
scheduled event. It had been on her calendar for a long
Right.
time. So we went ahead and moved forward with it. We had a little bit of pushback, but
Yeah.
overall, I think everyone was really happy to have the opportunity to meet the new candidates and talk to them. And I know the other candidates were happy to get some time in front of real voters. So we're really
Yeah.
proud. Melissa Lukeson, who's our VB Virginia Beach
Get off.
team lead here down in coastal Virginia, really organized the whole thing, and the whole team played a part, and we partnered
Great.
up with our Indivisible down here. So it was a big success, and we felt like we kind of stuck our neck out a little bit because I'm not
No.
gonna lie, there was a little
That's
pushback.
not neck stacking. That's great. That's what
Shouldn't
people
be.
want. Let me just say, last week we had the candidates on for the primary and CD1, and what we saw was the room was energized because people really do want to talk about the issues. And what primaries really allow us to do is sort of really chew on everything going on. And with that said, what I know in the room, if you're from Virginia, welcome to politics in Virginia and data centers. And I think when we talk about the Democratic brand and trying to figure out who we are and why we're kind of trying to, elect people that are going to fight the fight and get in there is that, we can't seem aligned with the billionaire class, the techs that are kind of ruining our economy to begin with. So I know that that budget thing's been in the news. And a lot of times when we're talking today, even with national security issues and voting, we see Trump, trying to control mail-in voting. And then, this judge is blocking that. Are you paying attention to some of these these voter attacks on our mail-in voting, which we're concerned about for the midterms, right?
Yes, of course. Well, that's just one of many attacks I think
I know.
coming our way, not just the mail-ins, but this has been unfolding over the course of several years. We
Right.
know that this they have so many voter suppression pieces in their agenda. This is all just part of the process. We need to be
Right.
very alert and vigilant. We also need to start, what can we be doing about it right now? Well, we can get our members trained, right? There are voter
Very good.
protection efforts we could be doing right now to get our members
Right.
trained to work outside the polls as poll observers. That's super, super important. Anyone willing to give up all their day to be a poll observer on the inside, of course, that's needed as well. A lot of that is nonpartisan, but I'm not
Yeah.
willing to check my partisanship at the door. So I like to work outside the polls, but I know that there's a
Yeah.
lot of voter protection training that can happen right now so that we're ready and we're not trying to do all of this at the last minute. So
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
think it's something definitely to prepare for. We've seen voter intimidation here in Hampton Roads in coastal Virginia, Trump flag toting pickup trucks in the parking lot at precincts. We've had to contend with a lot of that in
Well,
in several districts, several precincts of Virginia Beach. We saw that happen. So
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
we all have to get ready, get our game.
No,
We
they're
can't
coming.
be caught on our back foot on this.
Yeah, sorry. And my dogs were wanting to bark at the front door over there. Well, I would say that when we're watching the SAVE Act, it doesn't seem to ever want to go away. Now the president is tying it to housing and these other legislation that can, we're talking about veterans issues with the housing bill, this great kind of collaboration, disaster relief, and then let's tie it to the SAVE Act. So we should know how desperate they are and how desperate he is. And when we talk about the show today, you have people that serve this country 20, 30 years. It's never enough for these people to get rid of competent leadership. And, you look at Pete Hegseth and you say to yourself, holy crap, you talk about like incompetence, but this really has life impact, it impact people's life, like Nancy Lacore, Bree Fram that's here today. And these leaders are not backing down, they're standing up. But, how we see.
Well, he's such a
Yeah,
transactional leader.
yeah,
Trump, he just wants tit for tat all day long. That's how he's accustomed. When you are transcend that, when you
yeah.
transcend the transaction, then you are really representing your people. And I'm really looking forward to talking with Nancy and hearing from Bree
I
about
know.
how they are sticking their neck out to represent real people in what they're doing. And I think that transcends the petty leadership that we're seeing in Washington right now. And I think we need more strong women in Washington to
Right.
do that work.
That's why they try to get rid of them all. And we can see the cost of loss of military. If you follow Deepak Puri, he just had an article on Democracy Labs. We'll put it in the chat. I know it's going to run a show. Check out the amount of military people that they've fired or retired or chased off. And this has cost us, like you look at the Iran war conflict, this is real time. It makes me worried about the security of our country. So I'm so glad what people have been had to take off the uniform or picking up the gauntlet to get into Congress and to make sure that we do have what we need to fight. And that's what we're looking for. And I'm so excited. Susan Wagner is joining us today, the co-founder of Markers of Democracy. She's here. And we're going to talk about also the grassroots. We've been sticking our neck out, like you just said, doing things, pushing the envelope. And we want to see like what's next maybe for the grassroots. How should we be thinking about this? So I welcome it. And I'm going to get things started. And first of all, looking around the room, it's great to see patrons in the room. Thank you for supporting the show. Don't you love it, Carrie? You feel so loved and supported. And every week when I look in the back and somebody puts some money in our cup, I'm like, oh, thank you. We love you because it really helps to pay that Zoom damn bill. It's a real expense. It comes in.
Real expense.
Little, yeah. And we don't take paychecks, but we do we need help with some of those expenses. So thank you to our patrons. And if you're here for the first time, welcome to the room. We've been doing this. This is almost our 6th year. We have our also Women's Summit coming up on August 21st to 23rd. We hope you will get a ticket, learn more about it. We have Rachel Bitterkoffer coming, Ray Rosen, Simon Rosenberg, other great speakers, Robert Hubble, and Lieutenant Governor Hashmi is already a sponsor and signing up, but we'll put that in the show. This is where we come to share information. We started this podcast. We do an annual event. This will be our 10th big year. But what we're excited today is bringing you a show that goes, the grassroots has been doing this to amplify our voices across Virginia and nationally on issues that matter. So we're glad you're in the room. If you're nasty in the chat, we'll kick you out. Use it. Tell us what you're doing, where you're from. If you know Nancy, did you vote for her? Are you here from South Carolina? We hope you are. And stick around for the after chat after 1 p.m. We turn the lights down low. It's a great time for you to actually ask your questions. So we hope you stick around. But today's show, it is January 6th. You're on Network Nova Live. And we're talking to 2 military leaders. And one question for them is what comes next? They did not stand down. We have Nancy Lacore here. Woo, give it up for Nancy, retired United States Navy Vice Admiral who served as the 16th Chief of the Navy Reserve and Commander. And I'll let Carrie talk more about Nancy. And Bree Fram is here. I know we have a lot of fans. Whoop it up in the after chat for Bree. She's amazing. When you talk about rocket scientists and just lead with that, policy expert, author, speaker, and former Congress person running for Congress in my district. And so we're so pleased to have her. And what a story she will tell us. And Susan Wagner's back. And we're glad to have her in the room. She's the Substack podcast host of It Needs to Be Said. And Susan is the member at editorial board of the Grassroots Connector and also co-founder of Markers for Democracy. Boy, that's a mouthful today. So, what are you going to do?
These women being too badassy for us. There's lots to talk about.
I get so excited for you to interview Nancy. So I will leave you to that. And thank you, Carrie Short. from the coastal Virginia.
Happy to be here and happy to introduce former coastal Virginia resident and now coastal South Carolina resident, Nancy Lacore. Welcome, Nancy, to the Friday Power Lunch.
Thanks, Carrie. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. I was joking when you first joined the show when we were waiting to begin. I said that Nancy is a helicopter pilot and a mom of 6, and after that, we were all pretty impressed. It's not much. I mean, I don't know how much more she could have impressed us. Oh, wait a second. She then rose through the ranks, being at one point chief of staff for the European and the African. What am I trying to say?
Naval
The fleet,
forces,
I guess.
yeah.
The forces. Thank you. I should know all of this by now, living in Norfolk all my life. I should know all of the CENCATs, all the alphabet city here. But Nancy Lacore raced through the ranks and eventually was vice admiral. She was the chief of the Navy Reserve, which is one of the highest ranking women in the Navy. And now Nancy Lacore found herself jobless after the news was delivered to her that she was no longer the chief of the Naval Reserve. No reason given. And so Nancy decided she was going to take that and turn it into a victory for all of us by entering the race for Congress in South Carolina. But Nancy, I just wanted to start off by saying, as you know, the theme of today's show is courage and sticking your neck out. So you have had many moments that required courage in your 35-year career. I mentioned you were vice admiral in a male-dominated field and in a male-generated culture, right? You served in Afghanistan and the Arabian Peninsula and Africa. What was the biggest moment you think that required some courage in that career of yours?
Well, I mean, Afghanistan certainly was one that sticks out in my head. I was in it, technically it's a combat zone. But I think the hardest part for me was reconciling that, yes, I had left active duty and gone onto the reserve side because I really wanted to be focused on my family and understood that meant at some point the nation might call and the nation might need me. And so I was that was that moment where I was like, okay, this is what I said I would do. And at this point now I had 6 kids that they ranged in age from 14 to 4. And to, just kind of reconcile the fact that, I'm a mom and I'm a part of our military service member and our nation needs us right now. And I'm going to have to rely on, my husband, our neighbors, our, church to really do the mom stuff for me while I was in Afghanistan. So that was kind of like the first real significant challenge for me. But, in military, as a naval aviator, you're in short supply as a woman. It's less than 10% of the force is in that are women. So, it's just figuring out, to me, I think the biggest challenge across the board as a woman in aviation, in the military, is just, it's not necessarily standing up to something. It's really just standing where you are and really understanding what you are and what you're about and being comfortable with that. And, I don't lead like other people lead. And I never have. And it's just making sure that I understand who I am. And that resonates. It resonated with the sailors that I led. And I think that's resonating here in this district as well. I'm just being authentic and really just being true to myself.
I think one of the things that I was really impressed with your service after I knew you, living in Norfolk 18 years, is that when you went on and you got to that highest rank, you weren't just accepting that role in and of itself as this is my leadership role I'm playing this role as a female, but you actually took that and really wanted to accomplish something. You had tangible goals of things that you wanted to do to modernize the military, to take active steps to improve the workforce. You had an agenda, a winning, important agenda, and you got people on board. And I think that's, truthfully, obviously I'm biased, I think that's a real female leadership style. How was that? You were kind of on a roll, right? How did you get through that challenge of actually being in that environment in Washington, D.C. and actually trying to accomplish things?
Yeah, again, so I did have a very extensive agenda when I took the job in August of 2024. Normally it's a 4-year job, so I had time to really plan out because there's only so much you can do in a year. Unfortunately, I only had a year, but I had a big plan on what I need, what the reserve needed, and what I really needed to focus my time and attention on so I could get what we needed to help the sailors meet mission. And in particular, I can give the example of we needed new aircraft. We had very aging fleet of logistics kind of support type aircraft, fixed wing aircraft, and we performed missions that were only in the Navy Reserve. The active duty Navy did not have the capability to do what we did. So it was critical that we got our equipment updated so that we could support the Navy. And my predecessor had been working that for 4 years with some moderate success, and he had a very salesman-like style of engaging on the Hill and talking with representatives and trying to get the resources that we need appropriated by Congress. And I knew his style and I respected his style and it worked for him, but I had to really quickly figure out like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get my message across in a way that actually gets results for the Navy Reserve? And was pretty successful. In that 1 year, we had a 600% increase in the appropriations that we needed.
Wow, that's incredible. And then it all came to a grinding halt out of nowhere. You were just informed, as I mentioned in the introduction, you were just informed that you were no longer chief. And
That's
this is all a part of Pete Hegseth's quest to DEI, right? The military, dozens of tenured officers, as Catherine said, were sacked in very short order. Tell us about that experience.
it was traumatic, I'll be honest. It really came out of nowhere. It was a Friday afternoon. I got a call to report down to four-star Navy Admiral's office, and he informed me that Hegseth had said to relieve me immediately. And my first response was there a reason? And he said no, there was no reason given. And I walked out of the Pentagon an hour later. I never went back in. I never put my uniform on again. And that was it. 35 years just done like that. There's no award, there's no retirement ceremony. And it was very traumatic, not just for me personally, but for the reserve force, for women, for my family. We had to pick up and move. So, it was a lot to deal with. And, I spent some time trying to process it. And ultimately, it was like just, I got stopped in my tracks. I was focused on serving my country. What's going to bring that feeling back to me? And that's how I ended up running for Congress.
So you had said earlier that you at first wanted to know why,
Mhm.
right? You
Yeah.
pushed it. And what became of that effort?
I got a call. So that was a Friday. I got a call on Sunday again from the four-star admiral who had to deliver the news to me. He said, I'm working with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. We're going to find out. We're going to try to get you a reason. And I said, sir, I appreciate it. I don't think it matters at this point. I don't think there's any reason they're going to give me that's going to make this better. It's just a terrible situation. And I'm just going to, let it go just for my
Wow.
own mental health.
Right. So then how long did it take for you and Pat to really have that conversation about running for Congress?
A little bit of time. There's a lot of family and close friends who are like, you should do something, you should run for Congress. And, I just kind of kind of laughed at them. I'm like, you have no idea what that really means and what it involves. That's funny. Not really interested. Um, but it did start to stick, and more people talked to me about it. And it was finally around mid-November that Pat and I finally decided we could do this. Like I think my family was excited to see me excited about something again because they know how much service to our country means to me, and this is just a different way of doing it. And yeah, had a lot of conversations with people who actually do understand what's involved in this, and we decided let's do it.
Wow. Well, you had spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill already in your
That's
previous
right.
role. So
Mhm.
it must have been a little easier for you to see yourself in that position. At least you kind of had been on the other side of it to
That's
know
right.
what.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Had worked with the representatives on both sides, and so I did have a little bit of a glimpse into what this lifestyle would be. Not the campaign portion of it, though. That's a different animal.
Yes. I mean, you're used to walking into a room wearing your uniform, and when you walk in, you're representing the US Navy Reserve. Now, when you walk in the room, what is that like?
Yeah, it's different. It's taken some getting used to, when I walk into a room full of, political, politicos down in this area and they all know who each other is. And I'm walking around, I'm like, nobody knows who I am. I don't know who anybody is. And, it's just not a world I'm used to. But it's, I've always been grounded. Like I don't need to have the rank in the uniform. I just need to, again, it comes back to being authentic. Like there was a whole person under that uniform and I'm still the same person.
Great. And so what has been your biggest challenge in walking into those political rooms?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the biggest challenge for me has been just trying to articulate like where I stand on issues, because the only time I've ever discussed many of these issues has really been at my kitchen table with my family. In the military, you don't talk politics, you don't, speak out on any of the different issues. And so I've really had a focus on, taking all my inner feelings and thoughts and articulating them in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that we're reaching out in this grassroots network. Catherine mentioned that Susan Wagner's on the Grassroots Connector, which is a Substack for grassroots. And I mention often that I feel like being together with other grassroots leaders, it helps us formulate that vocabulary. It helps train us how to talk that way. So I wonder, like, what has been a big support for you in kind of getting through this process?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too trained up in the language, because it's not me.
Mhm.
I'm really again, just get back to the fact that I don't have a political background. I have 35 years of military background, and I just speak plainly to people. And I think that I think people appreciate it. It seems like people like come up to me after different forums and things, and they're like, "You don't sound like everybody else." I'm like, "I know, I'm working on it." And they're like, "No, don't work on it. Just keep talking the way you are. Just keep being yourself."
Yeah. Well, clearly you've had some success. You just got through that Democratic primary, and Cook Political Report just moved your district from a strong Republican to now likely Republican.
Yeah.
So you've clearly made an impact. What do you think has been effective for you so far in your campaign?
I think talking about my military experience, not so much as, hey, I've been in the military, but as I've been able to lead and represent and deliver results to people, regardless of what their party is, regardless of what their religion is, regardless of what their socioeconomic background is. Like I've delivered results to a wide variety of people, and that's what the first district is looking for. They want a representative who delivers results because the current representative has really been focused on headlines.
Right. And little quips here and there. She's been a national disgrace, in my opinion. You don't need to agree with me. But yeah, it's been embarrassing, some of the stuff she's come up with. It's not, yeah, it's really bad. So I'm glad that you stuck your neck out and showed courage. And I really do just admire the courage that you have displayed throughout your life. I know you've had some other ups and downs, and it just is so it's just so inspiring to see brave women sticking their necks out. And I think it serves as a good model for all of us who are doing sometimes unpopular things, sometimes things that are out of our comfort zone. And when we see someone like you, Nancy, getting out there and doing this kind of thing, and just on top of the extraordinary career that you had, it really is, it's very motivating. So thanks for spending some time with us. I am looking forward to Cova Coalition joining your campaign for a lot of efforts. I know we're planning on postcarding for you. Lots of our members who are from Norfolk remember your family when you were here all those years, all the kids and the swim meets. So we're all looking forward to doing some phone banking and getting out there for you to help you flip it. We want to see you flip
Kids, six, not six kids. And that is a campaign staff. I mean,
That's true.
how do we have them staffed up? I mean, so I just have a funny question for you. Nancy, running against Nancy. What's that plot like? What's that plan? I'm just laughing. I had one of my friend's daughters actually was the comms person for Nancy Mason. Said she's cray cray. Okay, so
I really like when I came down here, and started considering this, I was like, it'd be really cool to run against her. I don't think this would
really?
be too hard, but then she gave up the seat. And so,
Oh, that's right. She's
yeah,
not. She ran. That's right. I forgot that.
She
That's
decided
big
she wanted to
job.
be fifth. She decided she
yes,
wanted to be
Oh, she
fifth in
got
the
it in fifth
Republican
place.
primary for governor.
I'm so glad you corrected me because I was just when I was sitting there, I just had this mind thought. I'm like, oh my God, this is Nancy, but she's moved on, and so good
That's
for
right.
you. So you're going up against somebody else. Well, it will be an interesting race, and I'm so glad you have the COVID Coalition folks at your back, and also there's groups across the nation. Now that you're in the secret world, you will learn about how it operates, and national groups could support you in different ways. So thank you for being here, and we're so excited.
Thank you.
What great news. And now, as we say, get to work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the
No rest. Thank
opportunity.
you for your service too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, that was so inspiring. And so how long did you know Nancy before?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we just forever. Like she's two doors down from my cousin, and in the neighborhood and like 2 blocks from the neighborhood pool. So yeah, I mean, the Lacore kids are everywhere. And Pat is her husband is an absolute rock star. She was deployed when for a very long time in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. I distinctly remember all of this with her children, and Pat was just a superstar and continues to be a superstar, and the whole family, it's just
Yeah.
they are great. They're just a great, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think anyone here is surprised to know that Nancy's running for Congress. I mean, people just think very highly of their very involved family
Yeah.
of 6 kids and a
There's a
fantastic
great
husband, and
opportunity.
Nancy's great.
We've been seeing this opportunity where we're having people that from Doge are, fired experts coming in to run for office. And maybe we'll see some different ways we're going to operate with newly elected people. Be interesting to see how that shakes out. Well, thank you, Carrie. I'm real
Yeah.
excited because this is a perfect thread to our next guest. We talk about two women standing up for what they believe in, first, serving their country for so long. And oh my goodness, great to see you, Bree, Fram. Great to see you. I think you're just awesome. And it's just a pleasure to have you on. And let me just say, you're a retired U.S. Space Colonel. I'm a Space Force Colonel. And I can't wait to hear about how that all started when you got the, when it was with the Space Force. The whole Space Force thing is so interesting. But author and former congressional candidate, but really also a nationally recognized person, a voice on the LGBTQ plus community. That idea about leadership, belonging, resilience, and mission success. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It is awesome to be here. It is really exciting to be part of people that are fired up and ready to make a difference. And a shout out even seeing those people that are here from Woodstock that get out there and protest and don't back down too. Love to see that. You've got amazing folks here ready to go to do incredible things.
I know. I think it's really perfect because it's a time where we need this. And, unfortunately, no longer, 3 decades of service, serving your country. I want to get into your personal story because I find it to be so illuminating about how you lead now. And, before we get into that whole thing, tell us about what inspired you to actually put on the uniform as a 90s person.
Yeah, growing up in the 90s, I had this future in front of me that was open to anything because I had had grandparents that were immigrants and refugees that came to this country, literally turned around and fought for the right to be Americans and to ensure that we were all free. And they gave me this world where I could do and be anything. But I graduated with the intent on going into the space program, being an engineer for NASA, and that graduation was in 2001. And as I was applying for jobs, we got attacked. And that was the first moment where my life truly changed like that. It was my turn. I wanted to give back because I realized that freedom wasn't free. It was incumbent upon all of us to defend it when our time came. And so I joined the military. It was just a few days after September 11th. I was driving to see the woman who is now my wife, and it was a good thing that I could put myself on autopilot because it was a 2-hour drive, and halfway there was an American flag hanging from an overpass, and I cried for an hour walking into her apartment and said, "I'm going to join the Air Force."
Wow. And I'm sure there's so many stories from September 11th when we think about what happened when people stood up for their country. And that's an amazing, a way to start. And then after that, how does that next step happen for you when you go into the military with your background? You're already graduated, you're already an astronomical engineer, right? I mean, you already have that background. And how did you bring those skills into that service?
Well, it was amazing to be part of these teams doing incredible things. My first
Right.
assignment was at the Air Force Research Lab in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I was working on all sorts of small programs that were designing unique and innovative technologies to help our space program and help us defend our assets in space. And in a weird way, stretching back to the 90s, I kind of felt like I was that guy who would come on infomercials in the middle of the night wearing a question mark suit, dancing around saying, the government will give you money, because we were sponsoring all sorts of little innovative tech shops in people's garages that were coming up with amazing technology. But it helped for me because I got to move right away into a program management type position where I was making decisions about how this stuff get used, who we fund, because I know I told you I probably would have been a terrible practicing engineer. If I was the one designing that stuff, if I was designing
Right.
rockets, like a lot of programs that I got to be on, that rocket would have probably blown up before it hit the launch pad. And people would have said, what happened? There wasn't even fuel in that. And it'll be like, oh, Bree built that one. So
Rebuilt that one.
no, it's good. I just say, build a rocket. Here's how we're going to do it. And let the other even smarter people figure out how to make that work.
Well, that sounds like a leadership skill. Right. I mean, so you actually obviously have the kind of brain setup to actually complete engineering. So how did, and military leaders, people in this force, really what's really important is have that skill set of how to lead. And we talk about not just courage, but innovation, looking around and bringing these ideas into inclusivity. And a lot of times you see this administration that kind of obviously downplays that and actually is destroying the idea of diversity and inclusion. But we know that actually that's why the ship doesn't blow up. You have people that you bring in at the table and so we talk about that, like how your special skill set it impacted as a leader, like how you were able to use that in the time of your service, and then about your personal story when you decided that you had to come out as your true, authentic self.
Well, leadership is so important to give people on a team that sense of belonging, that
Mhm.
inclusion that is not only scientifically proven to build stronger, higher performing teams, but gives people a reason to stay. Most people don't leave jobs because they don't like the work or something about it isn't great. They leave it because they have a bad boss and they have someone they don't like working for.
Right.
So, figuring out how to lead in a way that brings everyone in is so incredibly important. And you allude to my story as someone who kind of felt like I was on the outside for a lot of it because for the first 13 years of my military career, I had to hide an aspect of who I was. And it wasn't until the announcement in 2016 that transgender people could serve openly that I
Right.
was able to be my full and authentic self. And there's a whole lot of theory about how authentic leadership works. You touched on that a little bit with Nancy. And when leaders are bringing themselves to the table, when they are giving permission to others to bring their full selves to work, that's when you can actually solve problems. And for me as a commander, after I transitioned, people started bringing me their issues that they hadn't before. And I thought I had been putting a persona into the world that says, I care. I want to know what's going on. But it didn't happen. Apparently, I was more like Captain America carrying a shield around in front of me, like, I don't care. I'm focused on the mission. But when I
Right.
transitioned and I revealed something of myself, my lieutenants, my captains, all of a sudden would show up in my office, sometimes in tears, and they would talk about problems that were outside of work, but actually affected how they performed on the job. And we were able to work through them. And as a commander, if you don't know about their issues, you can't help solve them. So being your best self enables others to do the same. And when you put goodness and authenticity in the world and love, it gets reflected back to you. And it's
Yeah.
really amazing.
I mean, just that whole idea, it really makes me nervous to think what the military is shaping up, what's happening inside there, and how toxic it is. And we talk about, and that just is bad decision making, bad leadership, and we've seen it now. When we talk about the expungement of all kind of people, and our failures are really out there for everybody to see in negotiations. People like experts in our that go out and ambassadors and negotiators. It's awful. It really makes me worried. I'm sure you do think about that. What I love about your positiveness, I think that's very attractive access, an asset for any leader, right? But also there must be a lot of heartbreak about this. You're the highest ranking transgender person and you've worked for this career, and then the rules changed. And I'm just personally what that feels like for you. And I know, like, you hear Nancy taking out the uniform and walking out. That is just so heartbreaking to see what's happening to people. And so, how are you dealing with that? And tell us what that feels like.
Uh, it did. It broke my heart into a million pieces to be dismissed because it was the mission that I loved. It was the people that I loved. It was creating a culture that we just talked about that was inclusive and let people be their best because when they were the best, the military was the best. So me coming out was not just a gift to me, it was a gift to the service and to the people around me because we were all better. And I want to tell two quick stories that kind of bookend my authentic career because I think it informs the what's next. That day in 2016, when the ban ended, I had an email ready to go to my colleagues when the Secretary of Defense finished speaking with that announcement. And I was
Mhm.
still worried to send it because I didn't know how my life was going to change. Eventually, I did. I hit send, and I also had a Facebook post to the world coming out at that time, too. But I ran away. I went to the gym buried underneath the Pentagon. I got on the elliptical machine and I went nowhere faster than I'd ever gone in my life with the nervous energy. But when I got back to my office, I sat down. The people there walked over to me one by one, shook my hand, and said, "It's an honor to serve with you."
Yeah.
The honor was mine because I worked with such incredible people doing amazing things. And then fast forward a decade later, an executive order had come out that said that me and others like me were undisciplined, dishonorable liars who lacked the humility required for military service. Mm,
Mm,
cool. It's the humility bit that really gets me on that one. But I knew I was about to be placed on administrative leave because the Supreme Court had ruled that the president could put this policy into place even as the courts fought over the
right.
merits of it. And I went to a meeting with the Joint Staff in the Pentagon, and because the Space Force is so small, we send someone that is one or two ranks lower than everyone else. So it's a room full of admirals and generals, and I happen to be seated at the table where I'm last at the very end of the meeting. I offer one work-related update, and then I say, this is going to be my last meeting. I don't know when we're going to have a replacement because this is an unexpected departure.
Wow.
And the officer sitting next to me turns and looks at me like, "Oh, why? What new assignment did you get? Where are you going?"
Right.
Because, like Nancy kind of mentioned, when I walked into a room, people didn't see a trans person. They saw a colonel and
Right.
everything that that uniform represented. So at that point, when I had to explain to this person, well, I don't meet this administration standard for military excellence and readiness, it took a heartbeat, but it dawned on that room what that meant. And this time the scene repeated, but was tinged with the sadness of past tense. Now, a room full of admirals and generals getting up, walking over to me, shaking my hand, and saying, "It's been an honor to have served with you."
Mm.
I barely made it out of the room before falling against the wall, just
Yeah.
in tears. And it
Yes.
was several days later, my very last day, I took my team out onto the parade field just outside Hegseth's office, pinned medals on some of my folks, got one final salute that left me in tatters, and drove away. No longer ever being allowed to wear my uniform. In fact, if I were to wear it today, I would be brought up on charges. It is ridiculous how petty and cruel they were forcing me out, which is
Yeah.
why I turned around and said, "Here's what happens when you force out a bunch of highly talented badasses without expecting it to bite you in the butt." And I announced a run for Congress 3 weeks later.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We only have a few more minutes though, but we have the after chat if you could stay. You did run for Congress, and I have to say that this is my district, and all I kept hearing about was this person that was fantastic, and people said, "Oh, you gotta meet her. She's awesome." And so then we did, and they're right. And though what happened with the redistricting, you decided to step down. Did you feel more in control with that decision? Was it not as sort of like personal? I mean, you made the decision.
Yeah, I certainly had the possibility of staying in the race. I could have made it a contest. But while I hoped to be one that would help shape what our democracy looked like, it's more important to make sure that we still have a democracy.
Right.
And my decision at that point was, look, we lost the opportunity to send 10 great Democrats likely from Virginia to
Yeah.
the House. What can we do to best make sure we send 8 or 9, or maybe we do even send 10? And that meant dropping out so that we could support those other candidates and figure out how best we could send them. And if that meant for me showing up in different districts or
Right.
helping others, that was more important than anything. I still have big, lofty goals and what I want to do
Yeah.
to help shape the future of our democracy. But right now, we've got to keep it and we've got to fight like hell for that.
I love it. So, in that sense, as we wrap up too, when you look at your next, what comes next for you, um, in that capacity, what service looks like right now for you as well. You are a person that likes to serve. Are you finding you're sort of like chomping at the bit to figure out where that is?
Yeah, very much so. I'm trying to give myself the
Some
space and the
time.
grace after one career into another, and neither of them ending on my own terms, both times a Supreme Court of one version or of another saying,
Right.
fuck you.
Yeah, we call that the double bird.
Yeah, it was not great, but now I need to
Yes.
figure out what it is that I want to do when I grow up. And there's a
I
world of
that.
possibility out there. And it just has to be values aligned in a way that allows me to make an impact and help others, help us all be that best version of ourselves
Yes.
to thrive.
I love that because when you said you won't get off the stage, you'll just find another stage to serve. I just think your next chapter is going to be something that is going to fight back against this administration. We need everybody in the fight and this kind of direction of what that looks like. I mean, you see these cases that just the Supreme Court yesterday that when you talk about these people from Afghanistan that are and Haitian population at risk, could you imagine this country what they're trying to do and deport all these people? It really is watching our American brand that you stood up on September 11th to serve be just being destroyed by these folks, and we can't let that happen.
Yeah, if there was anything that I ran on, it was proving that there is no such thing as the wrong kind of American. And these
Right.
people that are being forced out are American. They are built on our
Right.
story of people coming and looking for a better life. And I also got the opportunity to talk about that for my community, for the queer community and the trans
Yeah,
community
right.
in particular. So I say there is no more American journey than the trans journey, because look at our country. Who are we if not assigned British at birth? And then we literally fought a war to say, you know what? We actually figured out we're something better. We're Americans. And we want everyone to have that opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness and
Yeah,
find that best version of ourselves, just as we work to find that more perfect union, the best version of
I
our
love it.
country.
I love that. Thank you, Bree Fram. We have a round of applause, and I know we're going to be in community. I think we're going to continue, as we say, when Fennell Norton ran for office, we just kind of roped her in and got her into this group here. That we do the podcast. So I hope you'll come back.
I
Thank
would
you.
love to.
All right, thank you so much. And that was really great. I tell you, we all needed that. So, in the sense of our going to the next guest, I think it's a perfect segue to Susan Wagner, if you can bring her up, co-founder of Markets for Democracy, host of It Needs to Be Said, and a friend. Happy to call her that. Um, Good to see you, Susan. Great to be back. Great to have you back on, as we'll say, our little national show today. And I just want your reaction to what you heard so far, just from your point of view.
Well, you said we're friends, but we're not such good friends because how can I follow those two women? I
Did I
am
put you in
so
a bad
I
place?
am so humbled by them, Catherine. Couldn't you have picked a different two
No,
other guests to have?
because then when we talk about courage and leadership, I always think of you when I wrote about in Substack yesterday, your instinct, your ability to listen and learn, and you really are what I call that person sort of 3 steps ahead because you're always kind of listening down. And I think that that's important when we talk about people that have courage. You may not see yourself in that same light, but what we're doing, what you're doing is so important. So don't be intimidated, because truthfully, it's actually perfect, because now we want to talk about in this work, the grassroots. We had a conversation yesterday trying to figure out, like, what's next. And we talk about, we're not standing down. We talk about the emotional exhaustion of this work. But you look at this 30-year service, these people forced to take off their uniform.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps us sort of maybe put ourselves in perspective here. I don't know.
Yes, it certainly does. Well, Bree, I just want to say on a personal note, I have a personal story about being placed in a particular place and not feeling like this was the place I needed to be or I should be. And so I am so in sync with people who say you could be born one way, but that does not mean that's where you need to be. For some people, it does, and for others, it doesn't. So your introduction just now
Oh, that's
made
so
me
cool.
think about how warm you are and how inviting, and that positiveness is so important. And then Nancy's whole thing about being your authentic self. And Catherine, this is what I wanted to say, that I think everybody in the grassroots movement, most of us have been around 10 years, and we've really worked very hard.
Yes.
99% of us for no pay, 99% of us 24/7, certainly people like you and Robin and Fennell and
Right.
all the wonderful people I've met. And I know there has to be, you wouldn't be human if there haven't been days when you just say, this is not worth it. And I'm ignoring my health, or I'm ignoring my family, or there are other
Yes.
priorities. And it's very, very hard to balance all
Yes,
the
it is.
priorities.
Mhm.
And every time I get to that point, I think about people like Nancy and Bree, and I go, who am I to drop out of this? Look what they've had to put up with. And what I'm trying to do is elevate our position within, I hate to use this, but everybody uses the, ecosystem,
Right.
ecosphere of the entire political landscape that we find ourselves in. And it's been a 10-year struggle to get the grassroots into a position where people
Right.
understand our value. And frankly, I don't think we are there yet.
Right.
There's just too many examples where we don't, and I'm not talking about respect, like respect of
Right.
appreciation.
Right.
I'm talking about respect, as Robin likes to say, you couldn't afford to pay for all of what we bring, both in terms of our
Right.
determination, our skill sets, our
Right.
work hard attitude. So I'll just finish with saying this. The message I really want to bring is think bold. Think bold. You have to think bold. The grassroots people have so much to offer. And I do think in some ways we put ourselves sort of in the position that other people wanted to put us in. And
Right.
I give you guys in Virginia the greatest accolades, because you guys have really risen. What you did with the vote yes thing and all the
Right.
other, your summit, everything. You're not taking, letting other people dictate what's going to go on in your state. And in Hebrew, we say kol hakavod, which means with the best respect. But it sort of loses in translation. And so I want to encourage everybody here, just think bold. You've got to think bold.
Let's go a little further with that, because when we were talking, and I just love this analogy, because we were trying to figure out, you know, that I think where we've been doing this for 10 years and we're kind of sometimes doing the same thing as kind of what they call the insanity, you get the same results. So some of us are looking at our work and really saying, what do we need to change ourselves? Or maybe new opportunities that we need to do. We use the analogy of the butterfly, that we're in this kind of metamorphosis, like what are we changing into? When Bree was talking about, you're born this way, you're doing that way, we're always transforming. And as Evelyn Brumar, she was on a couple weeks ago, she also is a big advocate for LGBTQ. She'll talk about transgender or any kind of gender thing as, look, you could be divorced, you could be single, you could be this, you could be that. And we don't realize how we just move through the spectrum of life and we can be different things, different ages. I think the grassroots maybe has to look at that as well. We don't always have to stay in this kind of place. So in the sense we say go bold, and maybe take time to kind of assess what your next step is, or what it could look like. You can run for office, Are you going to start, so what are your thoughts on that transformational
Yeah.
ways that we should look at our skill set,
I actually love that analogy. That's a good one. You have to write an article for the Grassroots Connector because I'm always the one doing those kind of articles and I could use some help. But that's a really a great thought. You should really develop that. My thinking is that, yes, we've made little steps. I know I could speak for New York. A lot of the people in Markers for Democracy were encouraged to become part of all the different political groups and homes that we have. And some of the people have done that, but there's going to be many years till they have real influence. So I think we have to also think about it as skipping some of the steps that were historically the normal steps. And I'm not speaking about that in terms of politics and how far left or right one goes politically, because one needs to represent their district and all districts are different. But I do think that particularly women, which are probably 90% of your audience, historically, we've always sort of, some of us have fought a little harder to get out of the cage, but most of us have sort of accepted the narrative. And I think if you're talking about deliberate thinking, yes, like something I did was I thought grassroots wasn't getting recognition. We needed more real estate in the media platform. We had to create our own platform because nobody was giving us that real estate. So we created the Grassroots Connector, which has been pretty successful. Then I said, we don't have a podcast. There's not one podcaster out there who, they suck up to us for money and they get a seat at the table because of our money and all that stuff. But do they have any of us on their shows?
No.
We are begging them to come on our shows. But do they ever say to me, Susan, I always talk about the grassroots. I should have you on my show. Somehow that doesn't happen. So so that's what I'm saying. We need to jump a few steps and see where the holes are and then fill them ourselves.
Yes. No waiting. It's really what we did. No permission. We always I think our superpower is seeing seeing the issue and not sort of like looking at it, but just sort of figuring out how to go around it, how to solve and keep moving. People like Bree, people like Nancy in the military, you have engineers, they're problem solvers. That's what leaders do. They problem solve. So, and that's what I think it's good little pep talk today, Susan. I love it. So thank you. And I hope you could stick around a little bit. I know you're maybe have to on vacation out there, maybe a little bit, but it is grand to see you, really grand to see you. So thank you for being here.
And thank you for introducing me to these two great ladies who I'm
I'm
blown away by. I should have them on the podcast if they're interested.
Have them on the podcast. Bree, have them.
Needs to be said. Both of them.
To be said. Okay, I think you have. I see Bree. She's already ready to go. So, okay. Thank you, Susan. All right, Carrie Short. Let's get up there. Let's wrap this up. And
speaking of it needs to be said. I never hold back. I kind of never hold back.
No, you don't. It's you. I love that about you. Sometimes it gets us in trouble, but I love trouble.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Can't have both sides. It comes with it's a two-edged sword, right?
No,
two-edged sword. But I want to thank Susan Wagner for stealing my thunder on there because I, was trying to channel my best finale and pull everything together, a nice little loopy thing. And here comes Susan pulling out authenticity. Because if it's one thing that all three of you talked about today, it was the importance of authenticity. And I think maybe that's the key to bravery in many instances is, you're not a poser, that you are, you know what you're talking about. And when you have that kind of confidence that you are being authentic, then it's got to help you with your bravery, right?
Yeah. And I think what I love about meeting Bree, and I think the kind of leaders we need is when you have somebody that also has the deep feeling and empathy and caring, which I think people sometimes when they think about bravery of the military, like, oh, you have to be this like person doesn't care. But really what we find out, even in the grassroots, the leaders, when you are looking to bring some people up, you're looking to improve and say to people, you're really good at that. Can you do this? I think and making sure that you have, if you find a place for people that you can sort of try to figure out to help them along too. And I think when we talk about women and leadership, which we're going to do tomorrow on this Now Friday Power Lunch we're putting together, is I think that this is a style that should be commended. And I'm thinking the administration is going to fail because when you do not have women equal in a country, you denigrate women, you are a failed country, people. You're a failed country. Look at any country that doesn't have women at the top or being equal or treated respectfully. Their economy sucks. Everything sucks. Their bathroom,
Well, and that just goes for
sucks.
diversity of voices overall,
Yes.
right? And
I'm
we've
just
all
saying.
experienced that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no wonder these old white guys are failing the way they are so miserably. None of us are at the table.
Look at Afghanistan.
I mean,
You just silence the voice of millions of women. Then that's what they're doing.
and the ones who knew how to run the freaking military, hello,
Yes.
you just fired them all. You know, the
Exactly.
COVA Coalition, COVA Coalition is really looking at sort of this leadership training, intentional
Just
lifting
love that.
up of others. And we're very fortunate to have Kim Sutter. Many of you remember, I know we've had her on the show. I'm
Yes.
hoping she'll come to the Women's Summit this year, but she's running this grassroots organizing academy. She calls it GROW. And COVA Coalition has actually procured GROW for a
Nice.
small subset of our folks that we are nominating for July 18th and 19th, where they're going to have a intense training. She's kind of cramming her 6-week GROW curriculum into a weekend training for some members of COVA Coalition who are ready to step up. And it does take leaders to buttonhole them to say, I see something fantastic in you. I think you'd make a great leader. I want you to, come to this grassroots training. And so we're lucky to have Kim Sutter doing that training down here that weekend. If anyone's interested, you can certainly reach out to me, Carrie at covacoalition.org. And I'll tell you more about bringing Kim to your group to get that type of training.
I think we need to get her to exactly what we're looking for. And we're still building out our programming. So it'd be really exciting. We put the think tanks on Sunday. So I'm going to wrap it up with saying thank you to our guests. Thank you so much to everybody for being here. And if you're new here, please subscribe to the Friday Power Lunch. We have so much to offer, and the Grassroots Connector is another fabulous way to stay involved. If you're not on Substack, get on Substack, but subscribe to the Grassroots Connector, the Friday Power Lunch, and then there's also the Badass Network Nova that Sarah Calhoun runs. All three of those, you couldn't be in better place to receive all the information because it just comes through from COVA, from across the state, right out through our mailing. So we're glad that we hope that you'll think about signing up. And to our patrons, thank you so much for investing in us. Think about becoming a patron. It's really great. You get a great background. You get a special private little secret email every week that tells you sort of the behind the scenes news. But we're so glad that Nancy Lacore can be here. We're going to watch her race. If you want to get involved, please sign up. Please donate. And Bree Fram, we'll be interested to know what's next. We'll be watching, and we'll be just pulling her in to our world a little bit too. And so Susan Wagner, also that voice of authority. I love her because she just is really always thinking 3 steps ahead.
Such a big advocate. Yeah. We're so lucky to have her.
Yeah. And like I said, you look at everybody in these expert field. I mean, everybody in the grassroots, they have a prior expertise. Susan does too. Robin does too. You do too. Everybody, like everybody's PhDs, expert background. But yeah, we have time.
Like Nancy said, there's a person inside the uniform. Maybe everyone doesn't really know who's lurking inside of our grassroots uniforms.
And great. And thank you to the team, Robin Wagner up there on the controls. Laura Bell's in the room. Laura Martinez. Laura, she has brought a lot of great guests. And today she brought Bree into our world. So we're thankful for Belle. Thank you. And Laura Mack's not here today. We miss her. Dennis Orsinger is up there as well. Heidi Dragneff, our social media person. We're thankful for everybody in the team. I'm looking them up there.
Lori Eckert.
There's Lori Eckert. That's what I'm looking for. Lori, she's going to sing for us in the after chat. Okay.
Oh, no, I hope she knew that. Hope she knew that.
I can't do that. I'm so grateful. All right. So let's wrap up.
See you on the other side.
See you on the other side.